Welcome to CatCast, everyone. Or Interview CatCast, with my buddies from the game Cattails. If you haven't heard, it's a game about cats, and it's coming out, and it's pretty cool. Everyone's talking about it, so I thought I'd bring them on here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Tyler. I'm the lead developer for Cattails.
And I'm Becca. I don't really know what I do for Cattails, just a bunch of random stuff. And
she does everything that I don't do for Cattails.
Yeah.
Well, that's good teamwork. Good teamwork. So, I haven't followed Cattails super closely. I've heard other people talk about it, and so I guess for my sake and anyone else who doesn't know about it, could you tell me what exactly Cattails is and what it's all about?
So Cattails is basically a game where you're playing as a cat. You live in the wilderness, you hunt prey in order to survive. So it's basically like a social cat simulation game with some light survival elements to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, I guess, maybe dumb question. Is it in any way related to warrior cats?
No, it itself is not. There's some inspiration there to be sure. I'm a personal fan. Becca is as well, but it's not related to in any official or unofficial capacity.
Okay. So where exactly did you get the idea from? Was it partly inspired by Warriors and you thought you'd make your own thing, or were there other games you were into that you thought you'd base it off of?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. When I was really young, I had a cat, and that kind of spurred on my interest in cats in general. I haven't really had pets since then, but I really loved the cat that I had as a kid, and at the time my sister was really into the Warrior Cats books, and I was really into games like Harvest Moon and games like Animal Crossing, and so it's kind of like a fusion of those two concepts. Really, there's a whole lot of influence from a little mobile game, not mobile, but a handheld game called Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town, which I played all the time. It was probably my favorite game as a kid. So I would say that's actually the bulk of the influence is from games like Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon. But yeah, there's definitely something to be said about the Warriors' influence. I did make a fan game some time ago that was a Warrior Cats game. So a lot of those mechanics were sort of explored during that game, but this is sort of a completely different thing, if that makes sense.
So how does this game compare to the other game you made then?
Yeah, so the other game, that one's interesting. I still have a large fondness for it, but that was before I had any formal programming knowledge. That was before I'd taken any classes or done anything professionally with it, and so it's kind of a jumbled together piece of mess, and I fully know that. But Cattails is a much more professional project. It's much more commercially oriented project. It's better in pretty much every way that they are similar, and then it's also different in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that are dissimilar between the two, things that you can't really do in the old game that you can in the new game.
What would you say is the major features that you've added? I'm looking at your page here where you talk about all the features. So what was what are some that really excite you about it, or that really inspired you?
Okay, I'll go ahead and give one, and then maybe Becca can give one here. The one that I'm really excited about, I think, is that there's a really expanded open world system to it. There's a political system behind Cattails, and it doesn't really look like it on the outset, but the entire world is pretty massive. It's handcrafted. It's very, very large, and everywhere that you go in the world, your cat can claim power for the colony that it's a part of out in the wilderness.
Really?
So yeah, the entire map is actually dynamic politically. You can take territory, you can lose territory, you can participate in battles to gain territory. So that's one that I'm really hyped up about. I'm excited that I got that all working.
Wow, that's really neat. So do you create your own sort of, do you say colony? Do you create it, or do you join colonies? Can you do both? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so the initial game, the base experience, you're just joining one of 3 colonies that are going to be a part of it. But due to a Kickstarter stretch goal, which we reached, thankfully, we're able to have the resources to put in sort of a create your own colony system. That was something that was immensely popular in the old Warrior Cats fan game, Untold Tales. And so we were looking at how we could take a system like that and put it into Cattails and make it better. And it's something that's coming down the pipeline. The alpha's out there right now. It's not part of the alpha, but it's definitely coming.
Nice. So with this sort of political system, is it only sort of like related to gameplay, like getting into battles, or are there sort of diplomatic options, like dialogue-driven things that you can do relating to it?
Yeah, so there's both. So we don't ever want to like force someone to be in a position where they have to fight other cats. So you can like use herbs. There's like a lavender herb that you can use, and then also like you can unlock a skill that will help you take territory. So like the battles is definitely like a huge part of it. You can do that, but we don't ever want to like force somebody to like fight other cats.
So there's like a peaceful option to go through the game then, or
There is for sure. You're still going to be encountering combats. That's a big part of what makes the world dangerous and what makes it risky to go out and get rewards by like foraging herbs out in the far reaches of the world. But it is always something that is optional. You always have the option of, say, running away. It's never difficult to run away. You just leave the map tile that you're in any of the 4 cardinal directions, and the battle it kind of doesn't chase you. So it's definitely a more optional feature.
So is this game, is it more of like a sandbox type thing, or is there like a storyline with a sort of end goal that you're trying to win or accomplish?
Yeah, so we are planning on a story of some sort. It will be fairly lightweight. We're trying to keep it like colony agnostic so that you can experience it no matter what your experience of the game is. But that's not really the focus of the game, I guess I would say. The focus is definitely more a sandboxy thing. It's a very open-ended game, right? So if you are interested in getting your cat to be like as cool as possible, then you can do that because there's a whole like progression system where you can unlock skills. If you're more interested in like conquering the world, you can do that. If you just want to settle down and have a cute kitten family, you know, with your spouse, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of sort of end game concepts that you can play around with, but none of them are mandatory and none of them are like linear. It's pretty sandboxy.
Well, and it sounds like that would give the game a lot of replayability since you can do so many different things with it.
We're definitely hoping for that. I think one of the big aspects of the replayability of it is that there are different colonies, and we're looking into, no promises, but we're looking into actually letting you start in any of those colonies from the get-go. So 2 different players of the game could have vastly different experiences because they're going to be living in a different biome. They're going to be interacting with different cats all the time. Just the whole game is basically, it's going to have the same mechanics. It's going to have the same core concept, but the whole game, like graphically and socially, is going to be a different experience.
So are these 3 different colonies, do they all have like their own advantages? Do they have any sort of unique perks about them aside from just being located in different geographical locations?
So at the moment, no. It's something that we're looking into. I think it's an interesting idea, but we're not exactly sure how to go about that because right now the way that you kind of build up your character is a very free-form system where you start like at ground level. You start at 0. Your cat like sucks at everything, and then as you play, you're dumping points into whatever you want to do. So right now we have it fairly open, and if we added colony-specific perks, it would restrict some of that. But it's something that's not off the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what are like the major, I guess, like character upgrade skill categories, I guess, that you can work with?
There's
I want to talk.
Okay.
My time to shine. Okay.
Go for it.
So there's fighting, which makes you stronger and you're fighting against other cats. And then there's foraging, which makes it so like the herbs and the things that you do increase their benefit for you. So like if you have a healing item and you have really high foraging, it will heal you a lot more than before. And there's swimming, which is something that we've actually found because we watched a lot of people play our game, and people die swimming all the time. It's really scary. But
there's one particular region of the world. It's just outside like the starting camp, and there's like rapids there with like some rocks, and it's probably killed 100 cats by this point.
Oh yeah, I feel so bad every time. Yeah, so there's like a swimming. Please upgrade that if people play it. Please upgrade it. I don't want to watch you die again. Yeah. And then what's the other one?
There's
This is my
hunting.
time to shine. I'm letting them down. Oh yeah, hunting. Hunting's like really important because you have to hunt to survive, and hunting is really hard starting out, and then as you increase that. But like those are your passive skills. There's also active skills which do really cool stuff as well. So like a wild slash that will like attack really strong, or like a teleport home skill. Or
we're trying to offer a lot of combat options, but I know in a lot of games that use an active skill system, I'm thinking primarily of MMOs, they tend to focus on combat, and we don't want to put the focus there. We want to offer options there, but there's also a lot of stuff that you can get that isn't combat oriented. For example, there's the diplomacy skill, which we mentioned earlier, that helps you gain peaceful power in an area. We have a skill specifically for letting you sort of study the prey that you're hunting down, and that will like help you to catch them better. There's various teleport skills, which are like utilities to get you around the world a lot easier since it is rather large and open. So yeah, there's quite a few right now. You kind of are limited to a 4-slot system where your cat can have all these different really cool skills unlocked, but you can only have 4 of them available to use at any given time. So kind of an interesting aspect of the game is trying to build the ideal character for what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Is there anything like related to like athleticism, like speed or agility or jumping or anything like that?
Yeah, there's like definitely active skills, like a sprint. That's actually the first thing, and we just give it to people because
we get the sprint skill out of the gate. And then one fun thing that we're playing around with in the back end is we have a developer sprint skill, which is not going to be available in the game, but that just basically makes your cat fly across the screen, and that's probably my current favorite skill.
Yeah, it's fun being devs.
It is.
That's cool. Well, if there's like a whole running thing, is there like a stalking thing, like specifically when you're going after prey or even other cats on the map that would make you like invisible or I guess quiet longer or anything like that?
Well, that's like one of the major parts of the game is sneaking. Like, you know how you're so familiar with cats. I don't have to explain this to you. Hunting prey and stuff like that. Like your cat like crouches down, and you have to like stalk your prey and pounce on them. And then also enemy cats won't see you if you're like sneaking. So that's a major part of the game.
Yeah, prey is kind of interesting where you're hunting down like rabbits and squirrels and stuff, because we have a kind of a skill based, but also oh man, I'm using the word skill in 2 forms here, I'm sorry. Kind of based on the player's skill and kind of based on the player's stats. That's the better word. So it's kind of like you're sneaking up on the prey, and the closer that you get to that prey, the better chance you have of actually succeeding at catching it. But then there's also the balance of like, well, if you go over its vision radius, it's going to start running away from you. So you kind of have to balance that in your mind. But yeah, sneaking is... I mean, you're going to be doing that multiple times a day if you want to stay alive.
Yeah.
Well, and then I guess another form that the sneaking system takes is that, yeah, if you're around enemies, like enemy cats and stuff, they have a pretty complex stealth system to them, where if you're sneaking around, you can actually get by them without them noticing you. And if you're like behind them, they're not going to notice you from even further, so you can like get closer and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. So I'm interested about like how the skills actually like apply to the game. So something like hunting, if you like up your skill in hunting, how exactly does that work, and like how does that translate? Does it mean there's like a greater margin for error, or what exactly is the mechanic there? Yeah,
so if you're upgrading your passive hunting skill, it does give you a greater margin for error. It makes it a lot easier to just passively catch the prey. But then the other really cool thing is that all of those skills have an additional benefit on top of just that boring stat upgrade. So what hunting does is it actually lets you sniff out your prey. It unlocks this thing called the scent compass. And the scent compass, as you're sneaking around the world, if you don't see any prey around you, it's actually going to like plop a little arrow on your screen, and it's going to point directly to the nearest piece of prey, and then that arrow is actually color coded. And if you're good enough, if you figure out how the system works, you can actually like figure out what prey it's pointing to based on the color of the arrow.
Oh, so like what kind of prey it is?
Right. Yeah. So like if you see like a pink arrow, it's probably pointing to a rabbit, and if you're pointing to like a blue arrow, it might be a fish.
Is there any like functional difference between the two? Like, does one fill you up more, or gain you experience in a different way?
Yeah, there's a number of functional differences between the two. The first is just that, yeah, different prey type do fill you up different. But then the second is that it's a different experience hunting different types of prey. There are animals such as a mouse, if you're trying to catch a mouse, it's not going to see you from very far. It can only run around the ground. But if you're hunting a bird, you got to be really careful because the bird can actually fly, so it can like get past obstacles and run away from you a lot easier. And then if you're hunting a fish, it's an entirely different experience because you're basically stalking him on the coastline, and you got to make sure that you don't drown if you end up pouncing on him and all that.
Wow. Are there like other non-cat animals that can like attack or injure you? Are there any like, I don't know, birds of prey or foxes or anything like that?
Not at this time. Oh wait, there is.
Well, not in like the open world, but we have a feature that we've been working on kind of behind the scenes. We haven't done any official announcements with it, but it is technically in the alpha. Some people have found it. And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so there's like a cave where there's bats in there, and the bats will attack you. So you have to fight against them.
Yeah.
Oh man. Can you hunt the bats?
You can't hunt the bats. They are there just to make your day a little bit worse. I can't imagine that a bat would taste too good, but I don't know. I'm not a cat.
Yeah, I mean, I've never tried it myself. I think Ozzy Osbourne bit the head off.
Right.
Yeah. We'll have to ask him.
Oh man. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of really cool things in this. Like you've really thought through the features and made it, well, I guess dense. A lot of different things going on. What like sort of feature in there would you say? What was the easiest thing for you to like implement, and what was the hardest thing?
Oh man, that is a difficult question. I think actually it kind of surprised me what the hardest thing was, but I'll go ahead and do the easiest first. And I won't go for any gimmies like walking around the screen or whatever. It's too simple. But the easiest I think was actually the hunting system, and it wasn't because it's like the simplest or anything. It just happened to be the first thing that I implemented, and at the time, like I was so like excited about the ideas that I was experimenting with that like it felt like it just flew by. So the hunting system was. Yeah, that one was pretty fast, pretty easy. And then the hardest thing caught me off guard. Cattails features a pretty in-depth social system, and that really I underestimated. I started out and I wrote down a little document with all of the different pieces of dialogue that I thought that a cat would need to be able to tell you. And it's based on a lot of factors, right? It's based on like what their friendship is with you, whether or not you're in the same colony, based on whether or not it's an introduction piece of dialogue versus just a talking piece of dialogue. And then like there's a whole like friendship hierarchy where you can like start out not knowing them very well, and then you can get to know them very well. Or it could go in the opposite direction, and you could like make them hate you, and then they're gonna say like mean things to you, basically. I wrote down all of these different pieces of dialogue, basically these slots of dialogue that I had to fill, and I thought, oh yeah, this looks pretty reasonable, right? And then I went to like go and implement it, and I was like, holy cow, I overestimated this. I got to cut this down to half, and so I implemented that. And then at that point, I was like, okay, this works well enough, but now I'm creating like all of these NPCs in the world, all of these different cats you're interacting with, and it's like, it's awful. Like it's taking me like a week to make a single cat. And so like today, actually just today, I overhauled the system again and like chopped out a bunch of that stuff. And it was just like, it was needlessly complex to put it in the simplest terms. So that one kind of caught me off guard. That was pretty difficult.
Yeah. And I think it's hard like when you watch people play the game and you realize that they are not seeing all of that. So like you implement like let's say you implement like 100 things of dialogue for somebody, and then somebody might see 2 of them, and then it's like, oh, well,
they go up and they talk to him like twice
and like, oh, I'm not gonna talk to that person. It's like, oh,
but you have to talk to them during a blizzard, and then they're gonna say something else.
But like if you never talk to that cat during the blizzard, you're never gonna see that piece of dialogue. And so it's like, okay, well, how much time is it worth to do that for like 15-20 cats? Like,
yeah, I think we're looking at something in the neighborhood of 28 cats that we're hooking up dialogue for.
Okay, well, I mean, it's pretty cool though that you have all these different like dialogue things coming from all these different cats, because it definitely, I mean, it gives people a reason to talk to people and whatnot. Is there anything like applicable that comes from it? Like if you talk to somebody, can they give you like good information about the world, or any hints or tricks or anything like that?
Yeah, we have kind of an interesting system where we are not we're not trying to overload the player with information at any given time. So all of the characters that you're interacting with, you really only know what you know from what they've told you or what they're like mood is towards you. And the same goes for the world. Like, you're just sort of dumped into this large world. There's not like a library where you can go read up on it or anything like that. So what we're doing is we're using that dialogue system to carefully reveal details about the characters you're interacting with. So there's a couple of cats, and I won't say names for spoiler reasons, but you kind of interact with them, you get to know them, you get to know their personality, but you don't really know where they're from or who they are as a person or who their family was.
As a cat.
I'm sorry, as a cat person. But then as you become really good friends with them, they might reveal like personal details about their life. So that's one way that it kind of helps with world building there. And then another way that we're doing that is as you become friends with these cats, there is a functional difference to how they treat you once you're friends. From a selfish motivation, they start giving you gifts. So that's kind of cool. You might talk to them and they might be like, hey, I found a piece of catnip here. You want it? And then you take it and you can go, sell at the shop if you're a horrible friend, or do whatever you want with it.
Well, that's really cool. Is there anything... Do these cats, do they ever give you like any tasks or anything like that, or?
That is a suggestion that's over on we have some forums and some people have been suggesting that, and I've thought about maybe making like the leader of the colonies sort of give you a quest system in the basic sense, something like the task board from Stardew Valley, if you're familiar with that, but we don't have anything solid for that yet, and I guess we aren't ready to discuss whether or not we're implementing that. But it's
that's a nice way to say it. We have no clue what we're doing.
Yeah, that's basically what that means.
Well, there's plenty of time.
We're making a game about cats or something,
Yeah. Well, I don't play a lot of games like this. The one that I could, I guess, kind of compare this sort of game to is Mount and Blade Warband. I don't know if you've played that. But it's similar to this, except it's with, like knights and that kind of stuff. But one of the cool things they'll do is, like, characters, these NPCs will have tasks for you. And then some of them are almost kind of like joke characters, like, where they'll give you the same task every time, and every single time it's to, like, start a fake war or something with another kingdom or whatever. They're like, oh, these people have gotten too soft around here. So, yeah, no, it's always cool seeing... like things like NPC personalities, especially when you work it into actual things you can do, like, missions and whatnot. That's just my ramblings on the subject.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I've played just a very little bit of Mount and Blade Warband, like probably, I don't know, an hour at most. But yeah, I see where you're coming from with that, with the NPCs in that game. I think the difference is that, like, you might have like a lot of NPCs in a game like that, and they work very well for that setting. Our NPCs are fairly like dynamic individuals where you're going to have like a separate relationship with each of them, basically. So you might like learn what one of them likes, because you can give gifts to them or accidentally give them something that they absolutely hate, and then they're not going to speak with you for 3 days or whatever, So yeah, that's kind of the difference. They're very social NPCs, and they're not so much like task givers, I guess, in that traditional RPG sense.
Sure. Well, you don't need that. Sounds like you guys have plenty of cool things in it anyway.
Yeah, thanks. I think there's quite a bit. I think the caves, which were mentioned earlier, that's been one of my favorite things to do so far. It's kind of I know this sounds crazy for like a cat game, but it's actually a fully fleshed out procedural dungeon system, where you're basically going through this cave, and as you're exploring it, you get deeper and deeper into the cave, and every level that you're on of the cave gets harder and harder, and it's all random, so it's different every time that you do it, and there's going to be like enemies down there, and like rare, like you can find diamonds and stuff. So that's one of the really fun sort of end game things right now, because it's really hard, but it's really rewarding.
Oh, that's really cool. What would you say is like maybe a bug that you encountered with this game, or like maybe a system you were...
Well, okay, so many.
Let's try to... Okay, what was the one that cost you the most sleep? Like, what kept you up at night? Like, how am I going to fix this?
Well,
or how am I going to do
I have one that kept me up at night for a different reason. Not because of a bug
I forgot about this one. That's the best one ever.
Okay, so hear me out. At the start of the game, you meet this cat named Coco, and they teach you just the basics, like this is how you hunt, like this is how you fight, so you can survive in the wilderness. And he's super friendly. And after that point, like after you finish the tutorial, you shouldn't see Coco again.
Coco kind of goes away.
He just goes away, especially like with the way that we implemented the game for now. Like he's not around the world anymore. So I'm exploring one day, and I see Coco, and I'm like, "Hey, Coco, what you doing? Just standing in the woods, just standing there, like staring at a tree." And
we're both playing this at the time, and I'm looking at him like, "Coco, what are you doing here?"
yeah, like we didn't program you to be here. Like you're not supposed to be here. So like I go up slowly to him, talk to him, and this horrific noise happens.
Right, it
like,
sounds like
yeah,
and like the screen goes black.
Yeah, the screen goes black. The game crashes, and we were playing it late at night, and so that's
we're both just like staring at the TV. We're like, what the heck just happened? Like, did Coco just like kill our game?
Yeah, I know. Coco's a murderer, but yeah, that's the bug that I lost the most sleep off of. Not because it was difficult, or because we figured it out, like what was happening.
Because it was absolutely terrifying.
But that was just because we're not expecting that.
It was like an accidental creepypasta that we just invented there. But
yeah,
it was.
What did we create?
It was an easy fix. We got that changed like the very next day. But hey, if anyone out there is playing Cattails and you see Coco past the tutorial and they're just standing in the middle of the woods, you probably don't want to talk to Coco. Yeah. It's probably not a good idea. I think as far as other bugs go, as far as losing sleep in the different sense, there's two that come to mind for me, and they're kind of really funny, I think. I was implementing like a beach area for the game, so your cat can go down to the beach and kind of like waddle around in the ocean waves and collect some stuff. And I set up this spawner to spawn shells at the start of every day, so it's going to like spawn these scallops, and occasionally you're going to find conches. But this particular day, I went down to the beach, and like I see a shell, and then I see another shell, and these shells are just like popping up on the beach all around me to the point that I'm like surrounded by hundreds of shells. And I'm like, oh no! And I think there's actually a GIF of that on my Twitter right now. But it's just like the spawner is going absolutely haywire and just spawning hundreds of shells onto the beach, and it's terrifying. And then the second one, and this one we've affectionately named the Peter Pan glitch, and it is one that I've only encountered once. And we've had about 300 people play the game, and we've only had one report of it ever happening again. And I thought I fixed it, so I don't even know how it happened. But basically, it allows your cat to appear as if they're flying above the ground, and that's a really interesting one. And it has to do with the hunting system in some regard. But yeah, you're basically walking around, and even though your cat is mechanically fixed on the ground, it appears as if you're like floating above the ground. And as you move around, you kind of like... You do this weird bounce thing where you're almost like gliding through the air. I don't even know how to describe it. It's a weird one. So that one I'm currently losing sleep over.
That's funny. Well, that's something I might have to figure out how to do just to be able to say I did it.
And then you should report it, because I'm telling you, I mean, there's only been, it's been what, 3 months now, and there's only been 2 reported incidences, and I thought I fixed it. So who knows?
Are there any major...
That's a weird one.
Are there any bugs that you've gotten like a lot of reports about that you've been able to fix, or anything crazy happen? Anybody
actually
get murdered by the game or anything like that?
I mean, aside from Becca getting murdered by Coco that was terrifying. Yeah. Aside from that, though, I think we actually had a fairly smooth alpha launch. There's been a lot of minor things that people have reported, like graphical drawing issues, but not really any game crashing glitches. There was one in particular that has to do with the hunting system that does crash the game, but it's hard to replicate. It hardly ever happens, and it is fixed going forward. But other than that one, it was pretty stable. We were happy that people weren't coming screaming to us with their computers on fire.
Yeah.
So it says here that your game has full controller support. Is there any like specific thing? Well, is there any thing that you personally prefer to play the game with, like a controller of some kind, or do you just prefer the keyboard?
Yeah, he's having me answer it because I feel strongly. I love playing it with a controller, and I 100% think controller is the way to go. We just have like a Logitech one. I think I don't know. I play a lot of video games on the keyboard and mouse and on console, but I just think it feels really well.
It just feels right. It really does. Yeah, I'm in that camp too. I think controller is the pure way to play it, but I understand not everyone has one, so it fully supports keyboard and mouse, and maybe that's the easier way to play it. I don't know. Maybe it's nostalgia, because like I'm thinking about playing like Harvest Moon or Animal Crossing, and you always use controller for those. But yeah, we've tried it with the Logitech. I know like Xbox controllers would work if you plugged one into your computer, and then we actually have even played it with like a PS4 controller, and it works pretty well for that. I think moving forward, it would be really, really cool if we actually got it to like a console or something, but
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
not quite in the plans yet.
And we find people who don't play video games that much, like if you're new to gaming, we find that people do a lot better on the controller in general as well. When,
Right.
when we're like showing it to our friends and things like that, we find if they aren't used to playing computer games, they do so much better.
We had exhibited the game at a convention just 2 weeks ago, and it was the first time that we really had it out in the wild where we were seeing people play the game in front of us. We had it out into the wild there.
So
and,
I had to make it Into the Wild reference.
We found kind of an interesting thing where like there were a handful of people that they went over to the demo computer we had set up with a keyboard, and they didn't realize that you had to put your hands on like the ASDW keys, which is pretty standard in gaming at this point, but I guess it's not very intuitive, and I never did that as a kid, so it makes sense. But that one kind of caught us off guard. So yeah, it does fully support either. It's totally up to you, but controller is secretly the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Was that hard to like get it compatible, or is that pretty easy to do?
So the nice thing about it was that I started implementing the controller support really, really early on. I think the game was only about a month old when I started messing around with it, because literally I was like sitting there at my computer one day and I was like, I have a USB controller sitting around. We should see if we can get this hooked up. That'd be kind of fun. And so at that point, like, you could literally just basically move around and access your inventory, I think. There was literally nothing else in the entire game. You couldn't even use items in your inventory or move them or drop them. You just had them. So I implemented it back then, and the nice thing is that going forward, all that it requires is basically a change of mentality and a change of, like, the way of doing things. Because you can't rely on, like, oh, click this button on the screen. You have to make sure that the controller can access that button, too, somehow. But yeah, I think overall, because we started pretty early on, it wasn't too difficult to get in there. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. And of course, I pretty much only test with controller now.
Well, I mean, it sounds like it's the way to go, too, because it's the easiest one to just kind of lie back on the couch and just bum around with.
You get a wireless controller, you get it like casting over to your TV or something, and yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So what are you said you're not sure if you can get like a console compatible thing with it. So do you guys, what are like your big goals with this game? Like as far as like, I don't know, sales wise, getting it out there wise.
Make $1 million. Just kidding.
No, well, it's funny that you say that because like our first goal, or like really our mindset was, let's try to make minimum wage.
Honestly, that's kind of the dream right now. Like if we can like do this and make minimum wage off Cattails, then basically it means that we can like keep making fun experimental games like this. And so that's kind of the dream at the moment. But I think the nice thing is that we've had some experiences which kind of are informing us about how well something like this is going to do. We had the Kickstarter, which did really, really well, and that was helpful because it means that now, like, I get to work on this full time, which I love doing, and I think that's awesome. Like, that's basically the dream, is just to be able to continue doing this into the foreseeable future and live off it. So that's kind of the goal. Mm-hmm. But I mean that's like the financial goal, I guess. The point of the game.
Yeah, like we are doing it for money. Like we enjoy what we're doing. We just honestly we just want to make something that's fun, like something that we're proud of. And
it's honestly like a big fusion of mechanics. Where I remember as a kid thinking like, oh, I want to make video games someday, and I want to make, you know, Harvest Moon, but I want it to have this, and this in it. And so basically it's just me taking all of my like childhood dreams of what game mechanics would fuse well together and then like doing it with like a cute cat skin. So if we can make a game that's fun for us, then I think we've succeeded, even if it didn't sell anything.
We'll play it. We'll just keep playing it.
We'll just keep playing it secretly, like in our house. You know, we'll be the only ones, but it'll be good.
Well, yeah, as long as you're happy with your own work, that's definitely always been my approach. Even when like I spend a lot of time on a video or something, and I don't know, it gets like 5,000 views, which is actually a lot compared to where I used to be. But as long as I was happy. You know,
5,000 views. That's a lot of views.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
I have such warped expectations now.
I feel like it's a thing about the internet, though, in general. Like, you see these numbers, and they're just numbers on a screen, and you don't think about the fact that, like, there were, like, say, 5,000 people who saw that video, and, like, to comprehend how many people that is, it's a large number.
Oh, I know. I was just thinking about this the other day. I'm like, man, some of these videos, I'm like addressing an army-sized amount of people. This is
Right.
insane.
Well,
Why am I not?
You've got like
nervous?
what
Yeah.
33K subscribers, something like that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's a lot of
That's
people if you really
awesome.
think about it.
Yeah, and like
a
I've had
ton.
some videos with like over 100,000 views, and wow, yeah, no, just
Oh, that's
thinking about
crazy.
that, all the people. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure. Enough about me. It's
No,
gotta
no.
be.
No, it's so cool.
Do you guys have like the same kind of experience with like all the people who like gave you guys money and have like played the game and all that? Do you guys like look at the numbers and just
Yeah,
have, like a
so-
sort
Oh,
of
it's
moment?
insane.
That was something that Becca actually had to kind of stop me from doing. I was like obsessing over the analytics for probably the first week of the Kickstarter. But yeah, we have like all of these people. Like right now, we're looking at wish lists on Steam. That's our most important like metric. But you see this big number or whatever, and you're like, oh, we got another 50 today or whatever, and like it's just a number, but it doesn't really sink in. Like, oh, these are people who are invested in our project who really like what we're doing.
Yeah.
But one super cool thing, actually, and I loved this, we had a lot of people during the Kickstarter and even afterwards who would just, like, reach out via email, and they'd be like, hey, guys, like, love what you're doing, keep it up. And that was basically the
Yeah.
email, and that was super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So then
awesome.
we took and we made a forum for the game. It's like an online community, and I love doing that because then it means I get to, like, interact with people on a more personal level and get to, like, see their feedback directly, see their screenshots of, like, experiences about the game, and then really just get to know them as people as well, because we have, like, a pretty thriving, like, off-topic community as well. So that's always been super cool, to convert that random number on a screen of someone who really likes your game into, like, a person,
Yeah.
That's man, yeah, that it's so surreal, and hey, let me tell you, every one of those people could be like, that's like a big deal, because when I really get into a game and I really enjoy it, I'm like, wow, forget whatever else happened with this game, this is so worth it because I'm enjoying it personally. So like,
Right, yeah.
you look at the number. Yeah, and like I got to think about it too myself when, I mean,
Right.
especially back in the day when I wasn't as big on YouTube and I just get like, maybe a dozen subscribers here and there. But I have to remember, like, wow, I'm a huge fan of some people I follow. So,
Right.
I mean, I could really be, impacting someone in some way.
Yeah,
Or
well,
not at all.
I'm
Maybe
I'm sure
there's
you
a
have
pity
like
follow.
regulars in your comment section and all that.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
get you get these really invested people, and it's just great. It's like you formed this almost tight knit community around this subject you're really passionate about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not only is it so validating, but as you said, like, you meet people and you get really good, feedback and just general interaction. So it's really good for its own sense too.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were saying like you'd hope to keep doing this going forward. So what are like plans for other games? Would you do like add-ons for this, like DLC or sequels? And are there other games that you have ideas of making that you'd want to pursue?
Yeah, so as far as Cattails goes, right now we aren't really leaning too much towards the DLC route. I know that's been a dangerous path for many game developers lately. I think I have a very old school mentality when it comes to games. So I feel like if you're making a downloadable content piece, it should be like something that is really, really sizable, like expansion worthy, basically. So that's a possibility going forward. But really, I think that where our thoughts are right now is probably like get Cattails, get it out there, get all the features that we promised, maybe do an update here and there, but then work on some other things. I know there's a ton of people out there who want like either a console version of the game or a mobile version of the game, and so those are two really, really big things that would take a lot of time that we're really interested in doing if there's enough interest there. And then as far as like going forward into other games go, we both have a heart for animal simulation type stuff, so I could see us doing something else like that. I have a couple of ideas on the back burner, but I don't want to say any yet because they're probably really stupid.
Or maybe they're really smart and someone's going to steal them from you.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what we should
Maybe.
say.
Next one is
Go with
it's our sloth tales. Plays a sloth. Really exciting, fast-paced combat.
That's funny. somebody here on Twitter wanted to know, how did you think of the NPCs like Scout, Ember, and others in the forest colony? So I don't know exactly what they're talking about. So if that means anything to you, or just generally speaking, did any people or characters or anything in general inspire any characters or things in the game?
Missy is a lot like my cat growing up, Princess, and I love Missy.
Missy
a lot of
is,
people do not love Missy.
Yeah, for the uninitiated, Missy is very uppity, kind of stuck up with herself, like pretty cat, very preppy, thinks only about herself, and basically think about any character from the movie Mean Girls, and you have Missy's character.
So it's based off your cat named Princess, and they just happen to have that sort of personality. Huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then
one thing I'm actually going to bring up, because I'm sure that is probably going to come up now that we just had this conversation. All of the cats do not have genders. Because I realized, like, we might say she for Missy, but that's just because
Missy isn't necessarily a girl character in the game.
Yeah, Missy is not necessarily a female cat. We want to like leave it up to anybody's imagination what gender the cats are.
We came to realizing that, like, yeah, okay, if you're having a marriage system, if you're having kittens, then like gender plays a role in that, obviously, but like as far as a cat video game about like pixel cats goes, it doesn't matter.
There's no reason to even make
like,
a big deal about it.
Even the player cat doesn't really have a mechanical gender. It's just kind of like whatever.
Yeah.
So
like as a player, you're free to like it's bad because like usually you don't say like assume someone's gender. We're doing like the opposite.
Yeah,
just go for it. Assume what genders you want. Assume that none of them have
there
genders.
There for sure like there are
we...
characters that are more masculine or more feminine. Like Missy is clearly more feminine, but they're still not necessarily a girl or a guy.
Still lets you
I think
have
right
like
now
a family.
one of the fun things to follow is all of these people who are trying to figure out Ember. Ember is our shopkeeper, and no one really knows if Ember is more masculine or feminine, and there's some very strong opinions on either side.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Well, maybe it's kind of genius because you're getting people talking about it, debating over who and what is.
Well, and maybe honestly, it was just like it. A big part of that comes from Untold Tales, the old game that I had made a long time ago, and that was a Warriors fan game, and it got fairly big. There were quite a few people playing it at the time, and at that time, I had implemented the mating system where you can get a spouse, you can have kittens with them, and like all of that was fine and dandy. But I added that in later. That was like an update that came to the game later, and I implemented like a gendered mechanic there where you choose your gender, and then you can only mate cats of the opposite gender because you can only have kittens with them, basically. Mm-hmm. But it was just like it was this massive point of contention with so many people, and like it didn't even matter. Like that whole system, like I could have just taken out that variable that assigned them like a gender, and the experience wouldn't change.
Yeah, like why do games even have that variable? So
so I figured going into Cattails, we might as well just ignore it entirely, and it's a better game for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it lets you pick whoever you want too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're not locking the bachelors or bachelorettes, basically. Yeah, and then
no reason to limit players.
Going back to this is going
huge
way
tangent
back
from that question
to NPCs that are inspired by things in our life. One thing that was actually really fun is we used to live in an apartment when we started making Cattails, and that apartment had these community cats. And I think our neighbor was secretly feeding them, but they would come to our porch all the time, and it was really cool because we got to hang out with these cats, even though we couldn't have like a pet cat in our apartment. So some of the ideas for some of these cats did stem from those. I think Scout in particular is fairly inspired by one of them, who we nicknamed Fred or Buttercup. And then Coco, which is the NPC that killed Becca's game in that terrifying glitch. Coco was actually my cat growing up. I had a black cat with some white patches named Coco, and Coco was kind of a jerk, but I adored Coco, so I had to put Coco into the game. So yeah, there's a lot of real life inspiration for those.
Oh, that's really neat. Have you ever thought about bringing back Coco as like a villain, like in the late game, like as just some sort of demon spawn?
Coco will be back. I can't reveal exactly how, why, or what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That is
sure
secret information for the moment.
Okay. Are there any like? You don't have to say anything specifically, but are there any things like the cave where there are kind of things you have to find? Are there any sort of little Easter eggs in the game, or any little jokes or little features that you may or may not discover if you look around?
Well, yeah, one of those little things I think is actually it's fairly easy to see. We've been trying to be very creative and comedic with the item naming. So if you catch like a rabbit, for example, its description is like this little bunny got bopped on the head. So there's some like comedy that's sprinkled throughout, kind of Easter eggs just in the item descriptions. But those aren't like Easter eggs in the traditional sense because they're not hard to find.
I mean, there are definitely straight up Easter eggs, like little mini games that you can find.
Oh yeah,
and
that one's a big Easter egg. Yeah, that's a fun one. A couple of people on the forums have found that, but I don't think we've officially discussed that one. But yeah, there's a very large minigame Easter egg hiding in the game.
Yep.
That's
for sure.
Cool. Are there any special?
I'm trying to think other like Easter. I mean, I know some like fun little behind the scenes things. Like there's a log that you can crawl through, and that log only exists because Becca kept pestering me to make a log that you could crawl through.
Yeah.
But as far as like Easter eggs that like reference things in pop culture, I don't know if there's too many. It's a fairly self-contained world, I guess.
And I think a part of that too is just those will kind of be like the icing on the cake. Like there's so many things that we have to do before we even like think about the Easter eggs.
Some major systems, like the marriage system, for example, is absolutely huge. That's not even in the game right now. So that's kind of like the immediate tasks, and then of course making the other two colonies that aren't even started really into the game yet.
So much to do. Yeah.
So that's probably going to come very late game. I could see myself sprinkling some fun little like, oh, there's this secret area here, or like, oh, there's this fun bit of dialogue if you talk to this character at this time or whatever.
Yeah. Well, so you guys have released the alpha and you got people playing the game. So what's the ultimate timetable here? When are you looking to kind of be finished, at least with like mostly finished with a playable conceptual game that you're going for?
We are hoping for a December release. Like right now we have alpha people that backed us on Kickstarter. So
right. The alpha just began this month. It started at the beginning of July. So that's
a common question is where can I download it? Yeah, it's not available to the public until our hope is December.
Right. We have going forward, we have the alpha right now. That's what's live. It's a closed alpha. It's only for our Kickstarter backers. And then we have the beta, which is launching in October. That's also closed. It's only for certain Kickstarter backers. But then the full game, tentatively December. We are for sure on track right now. We don't foresee any delays, but it could happen. It's a big game. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So,
how much like work or how? Let's say it like this. What percentage of the game do you feel like is completed, or like how much of the work do you think you've completed at this point?
That's a pretty common question, and I think I have a number in my mind right now, but I could be contradicting a previous number that I've given. I honestly it's very hard to estimate. I would say somewhere in the neighborhood of 70.
Really?
Probably 60 to 70%. And the trick is like a lot of that is like mechanics, and then what we're working on right now is mostly content. Most of like the underlying game mechanics are there; they just need to be expanded on. And then as far as content is concerned, like we already have one colony, so all of that is built. We just have to build more colonies basically, and they're not different like mechanically; they're just different content wise and artistically. So yeah, I'm gonna say 60 to 70, but. One of the reasons it's so hard to estimate is that I started estimating how far done I was before the Kickstarter, and then the Kickstarter did like ridiculously well, and so we added all these stretch goals, and so there's like all this new content that we're working through. So it's just hard to estimate. What do you think, Becca? Where do you think we are?
I lean more towards like, okay, this is gonna be really specific. 56%.
That's very specific.
Yeah, no, I just
you want to give a decimal on that?
No, yeah. I mean. There's so many little things that add up. And another thing we have to explore is like the kittens, like how we're going to...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't put that in your estimation.
No, that's a really big system.
Yep.
Are you hoping to have like the kittens like age in any way? Or?
Yeah, we're basically on a very like high level that we aren't really up for discussing details quite yet, but on a high level, the kittens are going to be something that you will be able to progress in a sense as you're playing. You're going to be forming a relationship with each of your children independently, and then you can also hopefully, here's the hope. Hopefully, like, level them up in a sense and progress them. So they will be aging up. They will be getting better as they go. But I'm not sure what else we can discuss.
There's so much.
So will they be like following you around? Like, can you get them to tail you around the
we aren't ready to confirm that.
Not ready to confirm, but that's absolutely something that I want to put in there.
Okay.
I think a follower system would work really, really well in Cattails. It's not something that's there yet, but here's hoping. Cross fingers.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not confirmed because we just don't know if we can do it.
I would love to like take my little children out like hunting mice with me or something. That would be super fun.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
So much work though,
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah. What would you say is like? Well, okay, I've never designed a game, but I make videos and I write things, and there's always a part of it where I'm like, this was my favorite part, or I couldn't wait to like edit this little scene or voice this little part or whatever. So what what will be like the thing that you like looked the most forward to with regards to making this game?
So basically, like, I'm sure you're aware that the creative process goes in kind of waves. You get like these absolute spikes of creativity and inspiration, and then you have like these troughs where basically you don't want to do anything, but you still have to.
Yes.
So basically, whatever items have aligned with the peak of the wave, those have been like the items I was like, oh my goodness, I want to do this. So the first one was hunting for sure, and the hunting system was just like awesome at the time. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much better than anything I've ever made. This is awesome and it's really fun. And then going forward from there, I think more recently, the mine, that procedural dungeon system, that whole thing, I was like, I got the idea for it. I was talking with Becca about some system like that, and she was like, oh, and we can have like mole people and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's such a good idea. And then I sat down one day at my computer and I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. And then like literally in the span of like 48 hours, the whole thing was there. It was just like
one day.
It was incredible.
Because I remember having a conversation with him like
in
the
hyped
evening,
about it.
And then I came home from work the next day, and he was like, "Hey, so I made the mines," and I'm like,
"It wasn't."
No, you didn't.
It was there mechanically. There was no coat of polish on it at that point.
But like the amount of work they did in that day was insane. It's like, did you go outside today? Because that was like the amount of work that like went behind that is just incredible.
That was probably overall that was the most like excited I've gotten, I think, about a system in Cattails.
And it's kind of our workflow. I don't know if anyone's ever played like Sims 4, but there's like this trait that the Sims just randomly get that's like inspired, and it's just completely random. And that's kind of like how our workflow almost is at times, where it's like Tyler just randomly gets the inspired trait and then does an incredible amount of stuff in like a day.
Well, you see, you're comparing it to Sims 4, which is a very like happy-go-lucky like game. The inspiration that I'm looking to, if you're familiar with Dwarf Fortress, which is like super obscure and it's like impossible to play because it's ugly, but there's this thing in Dwarf Fortress, and while you're playing, you have like these craftsman dwarves that you're working with, and they can get like this idea where they really, really want to accomplish like a craft. They get inspired to make this masterpiece, and if they can't find the materials to do it, or like to like create this thing that they really want to make, then they just go like insane, and literally for the rest of the game they just like run around on fire. Like it's terrifying. So that's kind of the inspiration that I think. Not so much the happy-go-lucky Sims 4, but who knows? That's how my creative process works, at least.
I can definitely relate, because I'm hardly someone who's constantly like pumping out content. Like I typically am thinking about things, but how it typically goes is 4 or 5 days after I make a video, I'm just chilling, I'm enjoying the weather, enjoying video games and other things.
Pressing F5
and then I'm
on
like,
your video page constantly to see the views.
Yes. And then all of a sudden, like, I look at my phone, I'm like, oh wow, it's Friday and I should probably record something so I can edit it over the weekend. And it's pretty much how it goes. I kind of light a fire under my butt and get myself going. And then sometimes I get legitimately very inspired to do a topic.
Right. It's a weird process, because some of the times it is like, man, I could just work on this until I literally die of exhaustion. And sometimes it's like, I cannot drag myself to my computer to do anything right now.
Oh, isn't that
and I'm sure you can relate to that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like there are times where I'm like, typically once I'm getting to the editing process, I'm like, all right, I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to edit this thing. It's going to be out tomorrow. And I think like pretty much every video I released during the school year, I made in like one day, and I was editing it until like 3
wow.
in the morning, usually on school nights.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
But it was kind of like I knew I
imagine-
wasn't gonna do it if I like lost all this momentum. Like, this is a
I don't-
skill. It is a 24-hour luxury.
I don't make videos. I've never really made videos, but I would imagine, like, at least for me personally, the moments that I get like excited about work is like the creative moments, and I don't know what all goes into video editing, but I would imagine it's close to a low as far as creativity. Am I off there, or?
Yeah. I mean, there are points. Video editing is sort of like sometimes like I'll get to something, I'm like, oh my god, I have this amazing idea, it's gonna be really funny, or it's gonna be like this one video that this one guy who I like did, or it's gonna be whatever. And then sometimes it's like, all right, dragging the pose, dragging the next one. Oh
Gotta
my God,
trim
I
it to the
didn't-
perfect
yeah, I
like
gotta
second
trim
mark.
it. All right. Oh, there's another minute down, and only took an hour to do. It's been listening to this song on repeat for 3 hours.
Right.
Monotonous work like that. Sometimes it's
That's
fun,
just
but
crazy.
sometimes it's... Yes, I can definitely relate to all that. To all the
I'm
creative struggle.
kind of curious. This is sort of a tangent, I guess, but if you're willing to share it, what program do you use for your editing?
Oh, I use Sony Vegas.
Sony Vegas.
Pro
Okay,
12.
all right. We've got we've made like 3 videos. You know, we're not really video makers, but we made them for like pre-Kickstarter hype, and then like as a thank you video. And I think we used Vegas
Yeah,
of some
Sony
form.
Vegas, that's the way to go.
It's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I'd only ever used Movie Maker before it, but I really was liking Vegas.
Yes, that was my upgrade too. I went from Movie Maker, and that thing's a terrible program. It's laggy. It's garbage. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
So like, and the nice thing about Vegas is it isn't like a huge learning curve. Like, I mean, you know.
no, it kind of had the
I
same
mean,
workflow as Movie Maker. It was just better in
Yeah.
every way.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's better, and it does everything that you can't get Movie Maker to do. Now there's a few things like that I discover, like a few effects every now and then. Like I'll still discover things, and if there's ever like some kind of like wonky edit you see in my video, it's because I literally discovered this weird ass
Like,
effect.
oh my
that
goodness, I
thought
have
was
to
cool.
use this.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. Vegas is the way to go, at least. For
Yeah,
me.
I guess I did have a middle step there. I went from Movie Maker when I was really young, and then I moved up to iMovie because my family had bought a Mac around that time, and iMovie was
Yeah.
pretty cool. There were some
Boo.
really like for the time, you could put like lightning bolts, like something straight out of Star Wars, like lightning flying from someone's hands. It was cool. So I started using that for like all of my school projects, which were terrible, and then only recently got into Vegas. But yeah, I think Movie Maker was fine, at least back in the day.
No, it's not.
It was a specific version of Movie Maker though. There was like there's like 2 branches of it. There's like iMovie, and then there's like iMovie HD or something. And it's the HD one that has all the fun effects. And then like the standard iMovie, or I think I'm saying that right. I'm not a Mac person. The standard one like is basically just Movie Maker but on Mac, and it's kind of bad.
Yeah,
At
I
least
had
that's how
to
I
use
remember
that.
it.
I had to use that my last year of high
Anyways,
school.
that's a huge tangent.
Oh, I could talk about this stuff all day. But anyway, what are we talking about? Cattails.
Something about cats, I think. I
Yeah,
don't remember.
this is an interesting question. Somebody wants to know if there's anything that you regret putting in the game. Anything that was a horrible mistake, or anything that you
Oh
put
my
in,
goodness.
or maybe you
Well,
took out. Like, oh,
just-
that was a
just
terrible
today.
idea.
Just today, it was an absolute terrible mistake, and I had to fix it today. The original social system, which you're actually seeing in the alpha, all of it on the player's perspective, all of it's fine. Like, it works well, and it works very well in the gameplay perspective. But as far as the underlying mechanics go, as far as how I actually implemented that, it was a huge mistake. I mean,
Yeah.
it was bad. And Becca, who also she does software work outside of Cattails, she was like looking at my code. She's like, Tyler, why did you do it this way? Like,
Yeah.
you could have done it this way. And I was like, oh my goodness, I could have, but now I'm already invested, and I have like 6 NPCs fully hooked up using this terrible wonky system.
Yeah, so I guess that one's probably not very interesting for most people because it's like
Because
for
you
the
won't,
game,
you won't actually see a
anything.
difference. I mean,
But-
players aren't going to see a difference.
Yeah, just
but-
Is it
behind
more
the
like
scene-
from a design point, it's easier to like
Yeah.
add and edit
Yeah.
things?
the framework for it was just unnecessarily complex. and
Really
it
bad code. I
Killed
love
my
you.
motivation to do anything in terms of the social system. So I spent all day today revamping that and overhauling that. So hopefully that'll be better in the future. As far as like actual player facing things, I'm trying to think if there was anything that I was like, oh man, that was a bad idea. Maybe swimming. Maybe swimming is still a bad idea because so many people die. But I think it's fun. I think it's really fun to watch people accidentally put their cat into a river.
So
no.
Do they they don't die, right? They have like a respawn point, or does it actually end the game and you have to start everything over?
It's not it's
I would
not
say that's
hardcore.
pretty bold, but I can appreciate it.
We're trying to keep it pretty open to a casual audience, especially since it comes from like those Harvest Moon Animal Crossing roots. We figured that a more casual approach is a lot more appropriate. So what happens is, if you're swimming, you have this breath meter basically, and you're fighting the current as you're swimming to get back to shore. And if your breath meter runs out, you start losing health. And then if you run out of health entirely, then you kind of like, you flop over unconsciously. There's a fun little... Oh my goodness, that's something that we actually changed that was terrible.
Oh yeah.
And you can talk about that.
Okay, so I don't know if you've ever heard of Undertale, but I don't know, we were just in like the phase where we were watching like more horror stuff, more edgy stuff, and then in that same season, like Tyler made the death scene. And
it was awesome.
Okay, it was really cool, but I wanted to like cry after seeing it because like your cat like
your cat like all right. So to give you an overview of what's happening here, you lose all your health. The screen like flashes at you and then it turns like gray, and then your cat kind of floats to the middle of the screen. Everything's dark. There's like fog rising from the bottom, and then what you hear is your cat starts to like curl up into a ball, and you hear this noise as if it was like its heart monitor that's kind of like beeping, and it beeps faster and faster and faster, and then it just like boom, 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 it's like over, and then you see the little ghost, like the spirit of your cat, leave its body, and I think that's actually still in there.
I still think it's too intense. I don't like to see cats die.
Then you get to the dialogue. There's this dialogue that pops up, and back then, this is way different now. Back then, it was really poetic, artsy. The dialogue box said like death was talking to you, and it was like this really creepy thing that was like, I don't even remember.
I don't remember the wording.
I don't want to remember what it said.
It was freaky though, and it's like, we can't put this in a game.
And then like the choices you had were like, do you want to be revived by the doctor or do you want to embrace death?
I think you can still do that.
Well, you can, but it's not like as harshly worded.
It's not
I think
as harsh.
the whole thing still exists. It's still mechanically the exact same thing, but like it's been
we made like a really intense scene for death, and that was a huge regret, and we took it out.
Yeah, it's been toned down. So now what happens?
So funny.
This cutesy cat world that we live in. If you fall over unconscious, not dead, it basically asks you, hey, like, would you like to be revived by the doctor? And if you choose yes, then you just pop up at wherever your colony's doctor's house is. He gives you a little dialogue spiel, tells you not to do it again, basically. And you wake up with half your health. It's the next day, so you've lost a day, and then you drop all the items in your inventory. But so aside from that, like, it's not terribly punishing. I mean, it could be depending on what you had in your inventory, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah,
that whole death
there's
scene,
not like lives. I mean,
that just reminds me. I don't know if you guys have ever watched JonTron's videos.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you seen the one where he's doing like bootleg Disney games?
Oh my goodness, yes.
There's like the Lion King one where when you die, like Simba puts like a noose around his neck.
That was legitimately messed up. Like I was like, even if it's a bootleg, why would you do that? Like. I think actually around that time when I saw that video, Cattails was in development, and one of my roommates was like, "Hey Tyler, you should have that happen when you die in Cattails." I'm like, "No, I can't do that. There are children out there, man."
Yeah. Oh man, that's fun. That's crazy that all the crazy stuff that ends up in some of these bootleg games, but
yeah,
it sounds like you guys are running a
high
high quality family production here, so I can.
We're trying to. We're definitely trying to keep it fairly family friendly. One thing that we were approached about from a lot of people was, can there be like a combat free version of the game? Because people were like, well, you know, I want like my 5-year-old daughter to play this game, but I don't want to die of hunger, and I don't want like random cats to come up and maul me because that would be a little scarring. And it's one of those things where like, yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. That makes complete sense, and I respect that. But the game is what it is partly because of combat. So it's not pure, it's not innocent, but it is mostly family friendly. I think for like anyone, I don't know, what do you say, like 8 and up?
Anyone who's read the Warrior books would be totally fine.
Yeah, anyone who's read Warriors. I mean, Warriors is so much more gruesome than Cattails, that's for sure.
Definitely. Are there any like spooky music motifs, like when some enemy cat like starts creeping up on you and it's like the piano music starts going or anything like that?
Like I'm picturing like if you play Breath of the Wild, like you see these giant gargantuan machines in the distance, and basically the game's completely silent. But if one of these machines that have like laser eyes like lock onto you, there's like this terrifying, intense piano solo. We mostly don't have creepy stuff in the music. There's like a combat theme, but it's more just kind of like a driven piece.
Our music's really adorable. I love it.
I think the creepiest thing is actually the mines right now. And for
the
more
mine,
reasons
they don't
than
have
one.
the mine theme isn't on the alpha yet though, so
It
people haven't heard that yet.
That's coming down the pipeline. There is some kind of suspenseful music down there, but then
Cool.
there's a sort of extension to the mine system which we aren't quite ready to reveal. That's also a little creepy. It's cartoony creepy. It's not like scary.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and we do have a graveyard, I guess. There's a graveyard in the game, so maybe that's scary.
No,
Like
it's not scary.
if you go there if you go there at night, ghosts pop out of the grave. So that's
Really?
that's a little yeah, they don't do
It's just
anything.
little
They just kind of
spirits.
pop
It's
out.
not like it's not scary.
They're just like little
I don't think so.
little tiny wisps or something. It's not really scary, no. And part of that's actually I'm an absolute chicken, and I'm willing to admit that. I don't watch horror movies. I don't play horror games. I can't do it, and part of that's because like I have a hard time separating that like reality from fiction, and then I can't sleep for 3 days. So when I'm at games, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a safe space. This is gonna be a safe environment.
But then you made that ending scene.
And then I made that death scene, I guess. So
But yeah.
I'm full of crap.
Yeah.
I feel you. That's funny. So did you guys make the music all by yourselves then?
No, absolutely not. So we kind of thought about doing that in the early days, and I think our very first trailer, like way back in the day, our reveal trailer uses music that I composed, because I've dabbled, but I'm not by any means professional. I've never like had training in it. We were really lucky. We found this guy, his name's Tormod Garvin, out from London, and we just found a random post on the internet he had put up, like, hey, I'm looking for work, and like, oh my goodness, he's so talented. I mean, he has some examples of the soundtrack uploaded to his SoundCloud page right now, and I highly advise checking that out because it's incredible. I mean, I could not ask for better music for the game.
Yeah.
Very
Wow, that's
very happy.
fantastic.
It kind of it gets like two things that I really like. It gets the very seasonal ambient vibe of the game very well. The music's very progressive. It moves as the game moves. But then the other thing is it's very cutesy and cat-like as well. There's a lot of really fun bouncy pieces, and even the pieces that are a little more intense, like the combat music, they're still fun. Like you still kind of want to like jive out to them, you know. So
Yeah.
we lucked out with that. He's an incredibly talented guy.
Are you planning on like including like the music itself or the soundtrack as like sort of an add-on to like the Steam purchase? Like you can get the MP3 files or whatever with that?
Yes, so that is absolutely going to be an option. When the game releases, we're going to have 2 copies of the game in essence. There's 2 copies. There's a standard version, and that's just the game. You get the basic core experience, and then we have a deluxe edition. And the deluxe edition, it comes with the game, and then the big add-on is the soundtrack. You get the soundtrack with it. It's 45 minutes. It's all really good stuff. And then on top of that, we're giving you a free custom, not custom, but an additional coat color for your cat that is unique to the deluxe edition. And then you're also getting this art book that we whipped up. It's like a 20-page PDF basically that has like a lot of the really talented art that we've commissioned from people much more talented than us. So yeah, those are the 2 things that we didn't do ourselves. Some of the concept art and the music.
Oh, that's cool. What kind of what price is the game going to go for when it finally comes out? Is it $60, $80 with the deluxe version?
We're trying to keep it very affordable. I know that the game isn't like it's not like AAA quality. There's not like AAA amounts of content, but we want to keep it very accessible. So it's going to be $15 when it releases on Steam, and whatever that converts to in local currencies, we're just going to stick with the suggested conversion rate. So it should be approximately whatever $15 is for wherever people live.
Yeah.
Yep. And then 30 for the deluxe is what we're
Right.
thinking.
Well, yeah, like 29 for the deluxe, I think.
Yeah.
That's our pricing.
Yep.
Nice. Very, very cool. Is there anything, what are you like most like focused on right now, especially with like all this feedback from the alpha coming back? What would you say? I mean, you were talking about you just overhauled, I guess, the dialogue feature. What's
Yes.
on the menu for tomorrow?
That is basically what's on the menu for tomorrow. I mean, we got kind of the framework for the social overhaul in today, but I've got to actually go back and port our existing characters over to the new framework to make them work, because right now they don't. I think right now, if in my developer copy, if you go up and talk to like Scout or Missy, for example, they're going to give you some terrifying piece of error dialogue. So I got to work on that. And then the very next thing is actually going to be to start working on the other NPCs. So we have 3 colonies, but only one of them's in game right now. And we also have a lot of custom NPCs from a lot of really creative people who backed us on Kickstarter that wanted to get their own like cat into the game.
Uh-huh.
So we've started working on those, and we're planning to continue work on those to get those fully fleshed out in the near future.
Awesome. Well, since you guys are like role models and champions of this industry now, do you guys have like any advice to people who are like trying to do their own thing, or anything that you've learned from this process that you would like apply or do differently going forward?
So yeah, the thing is, I guess I kind of have an interesting start in it. I got started in game development just because I really liked video games and I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And me and my brother both really liked video games. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe if he learns how to make games, then I can be the idea guy and feed him like level designs, and then he can do it and I could play it. That'd be cool. But then I quickly realized that's not how it works. If you want anything to happen in game design, you got to do it yourself. So I got started, I think I was about 10 at the time, and I got a free download program off the internet called Game Maker, jumped in and just started messing around with it. And I mean, for years, I sucked at it, frankly. I was very, very bad, but I was having fun with it. So honestly, I think if I could recommend something for anyone out there who's interested, even if you don't have any experience, even if you've never touched a line of code in your life, just jump in and try doing something. You won't make anything good, that's for sure, but it'll be fun and you'll learn something through it. So like there's like a half a dozen really good programs out there for beginners right now. Unity comes to mind. There is still Game Maker. I still use Game Maker. And then like there's Unreal, and I don't know, lots of engines out there you can use. Just give one a download. They're all free, and just see what you can do with it, basically.
Yeah, and start small.
Start small.
I know a
Start
lot of
very
people
small.
who have really cool ideas, and they'll have like this huge game fleshed out, like open world, like pretty much like Zelda Breath of the Wild idea.
And it's an MMO, you know.
And it's so all this stuff on top of it, and it's like they don't know how to do anything yet. So like, and there's a lot to making a game. Like there's the art, like the people in the world.
It's an interesting discipline where you have to have like
so much.
All these different creative corners come together, because there's music and there's art and then there's design and there's programming. So like you're doing all these things at once.
Yeah. So just start small. Make like mini Tetris or something.
Right.
Like,
think like yeah, basically if you can think of like the simplest maze game that you can possibly imagine, like think of some piece of shovelware. That's basically what you're going to start with. You're going to be making these
and don't be afraid
extremely
of that.
simple things.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
that's totally
that's
okay.
great.
It's good practice. You know, I'm sure you can relate. Like when you started making videos, I'm sure that like you've come a long ways since then.
No, I was perfect from the get-go, honestly. No.
Oh, I see. Of course.
No, I agree
Sorry,
with
didn't
everything.
mean to insult you.
I agree with everything you just said. It's equally applicable to videos.
Yeah, it really is. You just kind of have to jump in, you know?
Oh yeah, you just got to keep working at it, and I mean honestly, you just naturally get better with these things. And I don't know about you, but I've always given the advice for people to, you know, if like you have original ideas, definitely go for that, but don't be afraid to sort of take what other people do and use it as sort of a basis or sort of a model for your own thing, especially when you're starting out. I mean, I don't think there's any shame in taking, you know, inspiration from, you know, some person's format or maybe especially writing style. Even like people who are just like, you know, in school, like trying to do well on their English papers. I just say like, hey, if there's like some YouTube person or whatever who does like reviews or whatever that you like, just like write in their voice, and it does wonders for people. It certainly did wonders for me.
That's really smart. I like that advice a lot. Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying about like, feel free to borrow ideas and make it yours. Like when I got started, wow, this is shameful. I got started making Mario fan games. I was so into like the Super Mario Brothers series back in the day that when I was really young, all of my games were like Mario related. You know, I wanted to make basically Super Mario Bros with my own levels. And that's kind of my start. But then as I progressed, I got really interested in that art of secondary creation. I got really, really into a game. And this is just going to show what a dork I am. But I love Lord of the Rings so much. And I got into the Lord of the Rings Online, which is an MMORPG. And it's not the best MMO out there, but the thing is they've taken like the original source material of Tolkien's works, Lord of the Rings, and they've ported it to the digital like world in such an accurate and authentic way. And they've expanded upon it. And I thought that was the most mind-blowing thing, is that they took like all of this stuff from the novels, and then they just kept expanding on it and making things that felt incredibly authentic, things that like Tolkien would write himself basically. And then they just kept doing it, and now it's been like 10 years and they're still doing it. So I think like just that art of secondary creation is so cool. And I think, there's no shame in that. Just like take what someone else has done and like use it as a basis for what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sure that whoever you're copying probably got the idea from somewhere else.
Oh,
no
literally
one's purely
everybody
original.
Literally everybody who you've been inspired by has just been just as inspired by somebody else.
It's all the same ideas that are just coming to us in different ways.
Yeah. Boy, I was gonna ask. Oh, okay. Have you guys received any, what I guess you would call hate mail, or even just like negative criticism, and how have you like learned to kind of deal with that or address it?
This is one of the great things, and I think it especially speaks to like the quality of the community around like cat games and simulation games and warrior cats, is that people have been pretty universally positive. We've gotten so many encouraging comments and notes. I think, though, I did receive like one death threat, I think.
Really?
Yeah. There was one guy who was basically like, "Get this game into my hands or I will kill you." And I was like, oh wow.
Even that,
that's pretty
But
intense.
at least they like what you're making, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh man, I'm so excited about this." And yeah,
it's
that's kind of the way you got to take it.
For,
but
apparently. You could put that on like
Exactly.
that could be like your future review, like
Right.
kill you if
that's
you
hilarious.
Yeah. Put that quote on the website. I think there was one other too. One person who was just like, they said something kind of nasty, but I think it was just a miscommunication, and they were like being sarcastic, and it didn't come off that way. So I was a little freaked out by it at first, but no, I think 99% plus of all the interaction has been very positive, and that's been incredibly encouraging.
And the ones that are kind of like down or bad, like our whole philosophy with it is just, if somebody takes the time to message us, and even if it's like them being critical or not liking something, it's like, whoa, somebody out there took the time to message us. Like, what the heck? We're nobodies. And like the fact that somebody would even care to even put hate out there, it's something in itself.
We're clearly invested to some degree if they're willing to trash
so
us.
just kind of think it that way.
That reminds me of this episode of the show We Bear Bears. I don't know if you've seen that, but
I'm familiar with it. I haven't seen it.
Okay, there's like an episode where they start like a YouTube channel, and at the end of the episode they get their first comment, and it's literally just like one of those spam like advertisements in the comment section, and they all just freak out because they got a comment on their video.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh man, there's this show on Netflix, and it's called Haters Back Off, and it's about the Miranda Sings YouTube channel. And I didn't know that going in. I just watched it because it was a funny Netflix original. But like that's basically what happens the very first episode. There's this girl, and she makes a YouTube channel, and like she tries singing for it, and she's just absolutely terrible. And that's like the funny part about the whole thing. But then like people start finding her because it's bad, and they start commenting on it, and she thinks it's like incredibly positive because all these people are commenting and watching her video.
Saying
really,
things like, keep trying.
right?
But
So
like I mean,
like she's taking like keep trying is like, oh, I should really keep trying. This person believes in me. It is pretty funny. So they play it off for comedy, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, well, are there any other things like related to Cattails that you're just dying to get out there? Anything that you just...
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to add to all of this is that if anyone's been listening for this whole time and you want to learn more about Cattails and you haven't looked it up already, cattailsgame.com is the website that you want to go to. We have all the info about the game. It has like the launch dates on there. You can get to our social media from there. Aside from that, I mean, we're super excited to see what people think of the game, and so we can't wait for December either. It's one of those weird things. But yeah, I think that about sums it up.
Well, I mean, you guys definitely sold me on this game. I wasn't sure what to expect coming in. I mean,
Thank you.
You know, my friends have been talking about it. I'm like, I mean, you know, it's a game. Like, how good can it be? But
had you seen the stream of Cattails that some of them did? What was that? 3 months ago or so?
You know, honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, I probably saw it at some point. I was pretty busy and a little disconnected.
Take on it.
It was great. It was my favorite.
Yeah, definitely different. We have a lot of really nice YouTubers who are doing playthroughs of Cattails who, you know, they're catering for a very young audience, and they're absolutely great. And then like there was like some VidClan members who did their playthrough of Cattails, and it was hilarious. I mean, I was watching it live when it happened. Becca was there watching it.
Smoke weed.
It was so funny, but like it a little more mature, you know.
Yeah,
Raised the bar
it's
a
great.
bit.
Yeah, because a lot of times we just hear stuff back from like kids and things like that, and so when we like have people who are a lot like us and play it, it's like
Yeah,
it's
I get
hilarious.
this. I
love
see
it.
your mentality.
Yeah,
That's how I
everyone can
play
enjoy
games.
it. So, I mean, that must be pretty cool seeing people do like Let's Plays on YouTube and stuff.
It's so cool. I mean,
it's weird at times too, though. It's like watching somebody like read your diary or something. Like, yeah.
Honestly, I think the weird thing about it is sometimes it's very stressful because I know as a game designer, there's a lot of elements that if I don't communicate them through the mechanics, it's probably my fault. So if like they're not getting like the hunting system or whatever, like that's so stressful for me because I'm sitting there on like pins and needles, like, okay, come on, you can catch this mouse, you can do it. And like if they can't do it and they get frustrated, like it's kind of on me. So
I can't even imagine.
That's been the weirdest thing about watching it. But no, I enjoy watching like all of the Let's Plays, and I think I've watched like 80 to 90% of every video that's been published with Cattails gameplay, which has been a lot of videos, and maybe I shouldn't watch that much, but it's hard not to watch
I mean,
it.
I can relate to that. Like even when people have done like, I don't know, like speed draws of my character on YouTube, and I see that, I'm so interested. I'm like, this is cool. Somebody's noticing.
Someone took this much time out of their day to make something for you. It's like, oh wow.
Yeah. No, it's such a great feeling. Well, that's awesome that you guys have been like so validated and that everything's going well. It's not a disaster. Everything seems to be on the right track with this.
No, not yet. Not a disaster yet.
And you've definitely sold me, which I don't know. I mean, maybe it's one of the more better accomplishments, but I'm definitely gonna check.
You like
this
cats,
out.
right?
I
think
I mean,
so.
it has
I think
cats.
That's a fair assumption.
It has cats. It's functional. You guys are cool people. As far as I'm concerned, it's the game of the year. So.
Oh well, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll be waiting for a trophy to arrive in the mail.
Oh, definitely. My whole certificate of achievement and all that, signed by yours truly.
Like one of those like you did it things they print out in like 3rd grade and hand to you, you know, with like the big yellow star on it.
Yeah,
that'd be perfect.
One of the
I'd hang that.
Participation ribbons from the swim meets and all that.
Yeah.
I'd put that in a little case. Put it right on my wall.
Awesome. Well, unless there's anything else you guys want to say, I think that about wraps it up.
I do think that about sums it up for Cattails. Again, cattailsgame.com if you need any more info on it. And we do have a Twitter and a Facebook, so you can follow us and like us there. You'll get all the updates about whatever's happening in the world of Cattails. And sometimes we like to share little behind-the-scenes screenshots or glitches that have been going on. So that's kind of fun. So yeah, I'll just plug those one more time.
Definitely. I'll add those in the description. You listeners who I've been ignoring should definitely check that out. You should buy this game, buy the deluxe version, donate to their bank account, send them food, send them ribbons, all that stuff. Thank you guys so much for doing this. It was just as cool for me as maybe it was for you. I don't know.
Yeah,
I wanted to know more about this. And
thanks so much for having us on. This was a blast.
Yeah, and I mean, unless this was like a total disaster and you guys are going to get off and you're like, wow, that was such a weird dude. Once this thing comes out...
We're going to go write up a mean tweet about you right now.
Well, once the thing comes out and everything, you're more than welcome to come back on for sort of like a follow-up decompressor second promotion
that
kind
cool.
of thing.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Love to hang out.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, hey, I'm a cool guy, maybe. You guys can message me whenever.
I think so.
All right. Well, thanks so much for doing this, guys. And
yeah, no problem.
that's the end. Goodbye.